Well, hello there, everybody. Hope you guys had a great Monday night. The Monday night, it was the last day of the hockey season. It was phenomenal. It was incredible, and yeah, we have another first time Stanley Cup champion. As I decided to wear this the first ever style that these guys ever wore, the Florida Panthers. This jersey, along with, of course, this jersey, both of these jerseys, both this one, of course, and this one, will both look really nice with 2024 Stanley Cup final patches on them. Because my plan is to get at least two of the 2024 finals patches and have them both put on that jersey and this one. And I mean, the Florida Panthers, their first ever Stanley Cup, what a run these guys have had the last couple of seasons. Because I wanted to take a look back, and especially the last 3 seasons of this team. Now, I wanted to look back here. Starting in 2021-22, they win the President's Trophy. They won the President's Trophy, and I do plan on making bigger magnets too of these logos, kind of like this size. I plan on making bigger size logos of the Panther ones for sure. But I wanted to take a look back. 2021-22. They win the President's Trophy. This is when they kind of let everybody know, they kind of put everybody on notice of saying, hey, we're here. They finished with a record of 58, 18, and 6. 122 points. Phenomenal record. Absolutely phenomenal. They win the first round. They get out of the first round. They beat the Washington Capitals 4-2. Then they run into their in-state rival, and they just get blitzed. They get swept in the divisional final 4-0 by the Tampa Bay Lightning, who would go on to represent the Eastern Conference in the Stanley Cup final for a third year in a row before losing to Colorado. So they win the President's Trophy there. The very next year, 2022-23, they have a major fallback. They had a 30-point drop from the year prior. 30 points! They finished 42, 32, and 8. 92 points. They made the playoffs on the very last day of the regular season, mainly because the Pittsburgh Penguins couldn't figure out how to beat the Chicago Blackhawks. That's how close it was from the Florida Panthers missing the playoffs in 2023. That close. So nobody's really expecting much of them. They're the number 2 wild card. They're playing against the Boston Bruins, who had just set a record for the most wins in a regular season. They won 65 games. Everybody's thinking, "Oh, this is going to be a bloodbath." Florida's in deep. I thought for sure. I'm like, Florida's in deep trouble here. Boston, they get up 3-1 in the series, and we're thinking, "Yep, it's over." It's like, how does Florida rebound, falling behind 3-1 against a team that won 65 games? Well, they responded because they ended up coming all the way back to force Game 7. 2 of those games in overtime. That 7th game, though, against Boston. Boston was leading with about a minute to go in that 7th game. Florida scores. In that time, They force overtime, and then they score in overtime to knock out the 65-win Boston Bruins. Holy cow. I mean, who the hell saw that coming? I didn't. I didn't see that coming. I'm like, what the hell did we just see here? I literally was just like, I remember watching that one. I was waiting for, I think, some of our pool teams to finish shooting a match at one of our bars in one of the bars that I go to in Minneapolis. And I was literally just like, I was flabbergasted. I was like, oh my God, what did we just see? They come back, 3-1 down. They knock out the 65-win Bruins. Just unbelievable. They go into the second round. Now this is famous for Toronto going into that second round chanting, "We want Florida." I mean, Maple Leaf Square, that's all they were chanting. They're chanting, "We want Florida, dun 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 dun. We want Florida." You wanted Florida, did you? you wanted, so you say you wanted Florida, huh? Oh, they got Florida. Florida smoked them 4-1. Florida didn't. They weren't screwing around. They weren't screwing around. They were on a hell of a high, knocking off the Boston Bruins. They just rolled the Toronto Maple Leafs. I mean, they jumped up 3-0 in that series. Toronto won in Game 4, and then Florida ends up, just making them look stupid in Game 5, and on to the conference final they go against the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, a lot of people, and me also kind of included, I thought, this might be where Florida. This might be where the clock strikes midnight against Florida. Because Carolina was a pretty darn good team. I mean, they had won the Metropolitan Division, so they had a pretty good record. Well, they sweep Carolina. Now, mind you, the first couple of games were overtime. The first game was like triple overtime. I mean, even though it was a 4-0 sweep, the series was a lot closer than the series score would say, because 4 of those I think 3 of those 4 wins were in overtime, and I think 2 of them were multi-overtimes. So it was a darn close series. So Florida kind of shocks everybody. They're in the Stanley Cup final, a team that was 30 points less than the year prior. They're in the Stanley Cup final. We're like, holy cow! This is incredible. Well, then that's when their clock struck midnight. Was in the final because they ran into the Vegas Golden Knights. And Vegas just, there was nothing stopping Vegas. Vegas just made, Florida literally was looking like a MASH unit. They were so bad. They were so battered. There were so many guys. Matthew Tkachuk, for God's sakes, needed help out of bed. He had a broken sternum. The fact he still was able to try to play, I don't know how he was able to. I don't know how he was able to do that, but he did it. He did, even though he had to literally have people tie his skates on. But he was out there. He was out there. He was out there gutting it out. Even though he could hardly skate, he was so. The team they were so injured. It was crazy. But Vegas took them apart. They took them apart, and they made it look easy. They literally made it look easy. I think there were 2 of those games where, the fifth game was what? I think Vegas won like 9-3. something like that. I mean, it wasn't even close. It was an unmitigated. It was literally a beatdown of unmitigated proportions. They just whooped Florida en route to them winning their first Stanley Cup. And I remember hearing, because we had heard that Matthew Tkachuk had said in the locker room after that game, when they went back to the locker room as Vegas is celebrating the Stanley Cup, they're back in their locker room, and Matthew Tkachuk is sitting there, and he looked at his teammates, and they're like, "We're gonna get back here. We're coming back here. We're not just gonna take this lying down. We are going to get back to this point." 2023-24, pretty darn good regular season. A back and forth battle in the Atlantic Division with them and Boston, and it's on the very last day of the season that they overtake Boston to win the Atlantic Division. So they win the Atlantic Division. They have a record of 52-24-6. Much improved from the year before. They went from 92 points the year before to 110 this year. So who do they get in round one? They get their in-state rival, the Tampa Bay Lightning. The team that just 2 years prior swept them aside in the second round. Well, they made pretty quick work of Tampa. They beat them 4-1, and they made it look easy. I mean, this is Andrei Vasilevsky they're going against. And get out of our, get out of our way. That's basically what Florida did. They just shoved them aside like it was nothing. So then we move into the divisional final. Who do they run into? A familiar foe. The Boston Bruins. The team that just 1 year prior, they came back from 3-1 down when they had won 65 games and came back from 3-1 down to win. They meet them in round two. And it was a little easier this time. Florida, much better team. They shoved the Bruins aside in 6 games. The Bruins, who, by the way, of course, went and beat the Toronto Maple Leafs in the first round, as kind of, as I know I predicted. That was, when I remember when I saw that matchup, I was like, well, that's pretty predictable. 3 things for sure about that series: death, taxes, and Boston beats Toronto. I remember saying that in my prediction video for the playoffs before the playoffs started. But, they pretty much... they pretty much handled Boston pretty well. I mean, they beat them in 6. And, off to the conference final they go again. Now, this time they're playing the team that wins the Metro, the team that won the President's Trophy, in the New York Rangers. And the Panthers fell behind 2-1 in this series against New York. Both of New York's wins came in overtime. And Florida falling behind 2-1, we're thinking, well, I don't know. I mean, the New York Rangers, they looked really good. They were looking really good. But I mean, when you go back, because I mean, I watched a good chunk of that series, and the 2 Ranger wins they got, I mean, fortunate. I think I could say fortunate, because Florida just beat the living tar out of them the entire series. I mean, you want to talk about, a team that was looking like a mash unit. Florida just was putting a beat down on the New York Rangers in that second round. Both the Ranger wins in overtime, but the Rangers were up 2-1. That was the only time the Panthers were trailing in any series. They're down 2-1 against New York. What do they then do? They rally off. They win 3 straight. And they brush aside the President's Trophy winning New York Rangers. Igor Shesterkin. And again, another reason why this series was even 4-2, Igor Shesterkin kept the Rangers in that series. Because if Igor Shesterkin is not playing out of his mind, I think the Rangers would have been lucky to got the 2 wins. Without Igor, they might not have even gotten 1. That's how good he had to be. So here they are. They win the Eastern Conference for the 2nd year in a row. They go to the Stanley Cup final. And they run into an Edmonton Oilers team who, I mean, they had a heck of a playoff. They really did. They had a really good run. They wiped out Los Angeles in 5. Pretty. But then they had a heck of a second round series against Vancouver. A very tough second round series against Vancouver. They were down 3-2. The third string goalie for Vancouver was looking in just unbelievable. But Edmonton, they found a way. They found a way to come back from that 3-2 deficit to win Game 6 and then win Game 7 to advance to the conference final, where then they took out the team that had the best record in the Western Conference, the Dallas Stars. They took them out in 6. So we go to the final. An interesting final. A final that I thought was, going to be a pretty good final. The Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers. Now, of course, in the prediction video that I did, the only series I got wrong, and I still wonder why in the world I picked the New York Rangers to beat Florida in the conference final. I have no idea. And in that video, I had Edmonton beating the Rangers to win the Stanley Cup. I was pretty close on Edmonton winning. But, they ended up playing Florida. And Florida, Sergei Bobrovsky stole the first game, without a doubt. He stole Game 1. He played unbelievable. Just unbelievable hockey. He stole that first game. Game 2, Florida comes out. They play their game. They look good. And they put a pretty decent licking on Edmonton in that second game. So it's now 2-0. Game 3, Edmonton again, playing really well. Playing really, really well. But Florida jumped up on them. They jumped up on them 4-1. Then Edmonton got a couple of goals. And all of a sudden they're like, oh hey, even though they lost that third game to go down 3-0, they realize, we can actually beat Bobrovsky. Well, then the series totally shifts. It was literally the tale of 2 series. Florida jumps up 3-0, and then Edmonton comes back and responds and just puts a beating on Florida in games 4, 5, and 6. I mean, not even close. I mean, these games weren't even close. And all the pressure going into Game 7 is on Florida. Because you have 2 options here. Either you end up winning, either you end up finding a way to win the Stanley Cup in that Game 7, and nobody remembers that you lost a 3-0 lead. Nobody will ever remember that because you ended up winning the Stanley Cup. Or you go down in sports history as the absolute biggest chokers ever in sports. That's what the Florida Panthers had to look at. That's what they had to stare at. They were staring at immortality in both the good and the bad way. The good way, win your first ever Stanley Cup. The bad way, you become the first team since the Detroit Red Wings of 1942, 82 years ago, to blow a 3-0 lead in the Stanley Cup final and lose. That's what the Panthers were staring at. The Panthers come out in this game, and I had said in the video the night before that what I thought Florida had to do, they had to come back and they had to find a way to play the game that they had to get back to playing the way that got them here. And that's what they did. I thought they had to get the first goal, they had to get the lead, and then they had to kind of try to control the tempo and get back to playing their game. And that's basically what they did. They got that first goal, which was gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous goal. A goal that's going into the shot's going into the corner. And if not for Carter Verhaeghe, reaching way out there with his stick to tip that puck and to go through Skinner's legs and get that 1-0 lead was like, what a beautiful goal. And I thought that's exactly what Florida needed to do. But Edmonton, they wouldn't be deterred. Just a couple minutes later, Janmark finds a way in on a breakaway, snipes one, tie game, and it's just like, oh boy. And it's just like, oh, this could get ugly. This might be a little tense. But then an unbelievable play happens in that second period where the puck is literally going in. I mean, it's looking like it's on its way into the net. Dmitry Kulikov makes an amazing play. Gets the puck basically off the goal line, prevents it from going in. It goes the other way, and Sam Reinhart with a snipe that just was, oh my God, it was so pretty. So pretty, right on the short side. The crowd goes nuts. Everybody's going nuts. Florida's up 2-0. They're up 2-1. And now they're just trying to, now they're just battling. They're battling to just kind of hang, not necessarily hang on, but they started playing their game. They were finally able to start playing their game. They got the lead, and now they can play the way that they play. They can play Florida Panther hockey. And that's basically what they did that third period. Defensively, McDavid didn't, they didn't give McDavid any room to do anything. McDavid was pointless in game 6 and 7. Bobrovsky looked, Bob basically got back to what he looked like in the first couple of games. He looked phenomenal. He looked absolutely incredible. He made one save that, honestly, this was the series right here. This save he made with about 7 minutes left. McDavid and Hyman, oh my goodness. Just unbelievable. An unbelievable save. And of course, Bob, he's doing his crappie flop. I mean, he's flopping all over the place. And he's getting the job done. And the Panthers, they're able to hang on, and they're able to win. And they win the Stanley Cup for the first time ever. And yeah, what a 3-year stretch. What a 3-year span for the Florida Panthers. They have a lot of free agents that they got to figure out, signing wise. But they win the Stanley Cup. They win their first ever Stanley Cup. They're the 2023-24 Stanley Cup champions. And what a 3-year run. You start out as winning the President's Trophy. you kind of get beat down in the playoffs. You make kind of a Cinderella run in 2023, and then 2024, you're finally able to do it. You're finally able to put it all together. And of course, here is my playoff bracket. I'm not very good at drawing the logos, especially Florida's, but there is the bracket. And yeah, the Florida Panthers are your 2024 Stanley Cup champions. Let me know what you guys think. What did you guys think of this year's playoffs? I thought it was an amazing playoff, an amazing run by the Panthers. Let me know what you guys think. Hit that like button. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. It would be greatly appreciated. And if you really enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button. I would love you for doing that. And if you want to share this video or any other video from the channel with friends, family, whoever, go right ahead. Liven the comments section up. And again, just to say, congratulations to the 2024 Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers. Can they maybe get back here and do it all again? We'll have to see. Let me know what you guys think. I will see you guys later.